Hello, I'm Andrew Pritchard. Thank you for watching today's Corn Belt Regional Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, it was yet another active severe weather day across the Corn Belt on Monday afternoon and evening, with severe weather reports all the way from Colorado into the state of Ohio. Now, one of these tornadoes in Ohio was a particularly damaging tornado that went through the city of Dayton during the overnight hours. And I pulled this video from Twitter. I froze it during one of the lightning flashes. This tornado hit at night, so it was not visible, if only for the lightning flashes there. And you can see this very large tornado moving through the city of Dayton. And as the sun rises here on Tuesday morning, we're able to see some of the damage there. And it does appear that this was a very strong tornado, again, moving through the metropolitan area of Dayton, Ohio. So an unfortunate situation there. Other severe storms across parts of Illinois, including this one that I tracked here. This video is playing a little bit jerkily here, if that's what we want to call it, but produced damaging winds here, blew over some mature pine trees, uprooted and snapped them off at the base, blocking Highway 49 south of Crescent City, Illinois. And unfortunately, it looks like another couple days of this, and this shows itself when we look at the last 72 hours of precipitation. It's just been this continued pattern where we get severe storms firing off the dry line and where our center of low pressure is over the central plains, and then these storms moving eastward across the Corn Belt, producing very heavy rains. And then, of course, no surprise here, our soil moisture anomalies continue to be very high across almost the entire Corn Belt region right now. The last 30 days of precipitation, again, highlights the hardest hit areas here across parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, into Missouri. That does extend, though, into parts of northern Illinois. It's been very wet up into Nebraska and the Dakotas as well, except for perhaps far northern North Dakota and northern Minnesota. But, of course, it's been pretty chilly up there, too, a little bit cooler than average. The other dry spot across the Corn Belt, talking about areas south of the Ohio River Valley here, parts of southern Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee, slightly drier than average over the last 30 days. But ignoring those two areas, it's been very wet for most folks across the Corn Belt. This was in the Sheridan River here in north central Missouri. I'll go ahead and click back here right in this area. I was traveling through on Sunday evening, and the Sheridan River, which was running very high here, had some strong flow to it. A lot of the rivers across the entire Corn Belt, really, in some of these hardest hit areas, looking very similar to that, with the water lapping up at the bottom of the bridge, if not spilling over. Another scene that's very common, this is a road. There should be a farm road that goes right through here. There's the stop sign for it, and it's completely submerged here. Also, this would normally be either a corn or a soybean field here, but of course nothing has been planted there at this point. The whole culprit, a look just like this, a similar look. We've been staring at it for the last few weeks. This trough over the western U.S., a ridge over the eastern United States, that keeps high pressure over the southeast. That keeps pumping moisture up from the Gulf of Mexico, and the strong jet stream winds that you see here, that is the trigger for repeated rounds of showers and thunderstorms. As we wake up on Tuesday morning, we'll check in with the satellite loop here, and we're watching one area of strong thunderstorms now tracking through parts of southern Iowa, and you can see that. I'll go ahead and play the loop one more time for you as the sun rises. You see the bubbling cloud tops there. That's a cluster of thunderstorms that may continue to track eastward towards the Quad Cities near the Illinois and Iowa border before likely weakening during the midday hours. But I'll take my drawings off. We're watching a cold front across this region here to be the focal point for additional severe storms to develop during the afternoon and evening, and those will track off to the east as well as we go into the overnight hours. So another long day of severe weather expected over the Midwest. Now let's go ahead and jump through. I accidentally drew my arrow already here on the radar, but we'll watch this area of thunderstorms tracking across the state of Iowa. Again, perhaps continuing to track off to, I did it again, off to the east, bringing potentially some severe weather to parts of southern and eastern Iowa before weakening midday, but then we expect additional storms developing across this area and moving off to the east during the afternoon and evening into the overnight hours across Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. We'll look at the day one severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center, and they've highlighted parts of Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, and Illinois with a moderate risk, that red shading there, for widespread severe storms, again this afternoon and evening, potentially producing tornadoes, some of which could be strong tornadoes. But the bigger impact today, I think, as we head into the late evening, into the overnight, is going to be damaging winds with the potential for a squall line or several segments here of bow echoes, if that's a term you're familiar with. We get these clusters of storms that form into a bow appearance on radar, and those are really problematic when we talk about damaging winds. And so the most likely area for that is going to be developing here around the Kansas City area up towards Omaha, and then seeing one or more clusters of severe storms tracking off to the east into the overnight hours. As we look into the day tomorrow, Wednesday, I'm not sure why it says test up here, because it's very much the day 2 severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. Again, highlighting this front moving through the area. Let me go ahead and flip back. The front dragged through, the warm front extending off to the east, and we expect to see additional storms developing along that front during the afternoon and evening, tracking off to the east. We'll take a look at the high-resolution rapid refresh model. This is showing a simulated radar picture as we head through the afternoon and into the evening. I'm going to go ahead and pause it. We'll step through time here as we wake up on Tuesday morning. Again, here are the storms across southern Iowa. Those track off to the east before weakening near the Illinois border. But as we head into the afternoon now, we're getting to around 4 p.m. here, Central Time. We're starting to see those storms developing across parts of southern Iowa into Kansas. And those continue to grow upscale as we head into the evening now. We're talking about getting close to about midnight now, and we're seeing these storms form into, again, little line segments, perhaps a bow echo here across central Illinois. And so, again, this is why this is the swath where we see storms first develop here, but then we can extend that area off to the east as we head into the overnight hours with, again, severe weather continuing into the overnight, perhaps, widespread damaging winds, and the possibility for embedded tornadoes, isolated tornadoes continuing into the overnight. So again, Kansas and Nebraska eastward through Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, and perhaps Indiana, another long 24 hours when we talk about the potential for severe weather. We'll check in with the forecast for CAPE, convective available potential energy. This is the fuel for those thunderstorms, and again, no shortage of that, highlighting that area, that same area, Kansas and Missouri, southern Nebraska, and Iowa, for the potential for those storms to develop. I'll go ahead and click back. We'll go through time. You see that instability peak during the late afternoon and the evening, and that makes sense. That's the time of day where the sun has been shining the longest. That's when we reach our high temperatures, and that's when the instability for these thunderstorms is going to be the highest. That's why we see those storms flare up during the late afternoon and evening. Now, what you can also see is the front that extends off to the east, where it's unstable south of that, stable to the north. Clusters of thunderstorms love to ride along these boundaries, and so that's, again, why we expect to see storms developing along this area, tracking off to the east, riding along and south of that boundary, producing severe weather into the night as instability remains present. I'm going to take the drawings off. We're going to go through the overnight tonight and then go into the afternoon on Wednesday. We see the sun come out, heat up the atmosphere again, heat up the ground level here where we walk around. It becomes warm and muggy again across this area, parts of Iowa and Missouri, off to the east. And that's, again, why we expect severe storms to develop across that area, tracking off to the east across parts of Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. So really, I said a long 24 hours. It could be a long 48 hours, to be honest with you. We'll take a look at the high-resolution NAM model, just play this out. It shows a similar picture. Let me go ahead and go back here and pause that for you. We'll go ahead and step through time going into Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday evening. There it is, same picture. These severe storms developing in a line along the front here across Iowa and Missouri. Go ahead and take my drawing off. Those track off to the east in the overnight. Here it is, midnight, 2 o'clock, 3 in the morning, making their way across central Illinois. So again, maybe a loud and noisy night across parts of central Illinois. And then as we head into the day tomorrow, we kind of reload. The atmosphere destabilizes across this region, and what do you know, as we get into the afternoon and evening, we see more showers and storms developing with the potential that some of those storms could be severe. Total precipitation from the high-resolution NAM model over the next 60 hours, so this takes us into Thursday afternoon. Again, don't take it for a fact, but it kind of highlights the pattern here with swaths of heavy rain being, laid down by some of these thunderstorms. It's not everyone is going to get drenched here. A lot of folks, I think, will see rain over the next 60 hours, but it's in these corridors where the heaviest storms track that we end up seeing the heaviest rainfall. So note the pattern here where we're dealing with showers and storms kind of in this area here along the front, the cold front, and along the warm front over the next 60 hours, but isolated amounts where we'll see the heaviest totals. Now let's look at the jet stream and the evolution here over the next week or so. And again, here's our trough. That's been the problem maker, that ridge over the southeast. As we play this out through the next 7 days, you're going to notice that trough over the western U.S. kind of makes its way across the country in weekends, and we build in a subtle ridge across the middle part of the country. Now that is it's it's a drier pattern here. You know, we get rid of the trough reloading over the western United States, but the problem lies underneath. We check in with the jet stream winds here, so looking for pockets of stronger winds. And as I play this out, I'm going to go ahead and do it over time here once my little clicker comes up here. So here's our trough over the western United States, that U shape, and that's what's been triggering the rapid or the repeated development of showers and storms across the central U.S., tracking off to the east. Now, as we start to go through the middle part of the week into the weekend, we see that trough slowly lift off, but even as we shift to an alignment that, you know, might suggest a drier pattern overall, we're seeing little patches of stronger winds like this. I kind of missed the mark there. You see this? That's a short wave, and those are little embedded patches of stronger winds within the jet stream. And those, when we've got a humid, you know, late spring, early summer air mass, those are the focal point and the trigger for additional clusters of thunderstorms. We go ahead and play it out a little bit further. And here's another one as we get into, this would be Monday of next week. We've got a short wave kind of making its way through the middle part of the country. So we lose the huge trough over the central or the western United States that's triggering, you know, major low pressure systems developing over the central United States. But we don't shut the jet stream down. We're just getting more isolated clusters of thunderstorms developing. So, you know, it's not a dry pattern. It's drier. It's just going to be that the heavy rain is going to be falling in more scattered to isolated swaths here. So still problematic, but we kind of shed the look that we've had over the last couple of weeks with, you know, widespread soaking rain events. So it's not good news, I guess, but it's better news as we head into next week. But those little short waves within the jet stream, again, when we talk about, you know, still having a warm and humid air mass in place, that is going to be, you know, problematic for some folks. And we'll just have to watch those, you know, kind of day by day. It's not something that, you know, shows up with a lot of consistency when we look out that far in the 5 to 7 day time frame. But stay tuned with Eric and I's forecasts, because we'll kind of dive into each one of those little embedded short waves as they become more clear and we get a little bit closer. And that'll show up here. We'll look at the precipitation forecast from the European model. And again, here's the look that we deal with now. When we have that big trough over the western U.S., the strong jet stream winds coming into the central plains, we get the development of these areas of low pressure across the central U.S. And that's been the focal point for the heavy rain, the widespread rain. As we head into the weekend, we do kind of dry out, cool off a little bit across parts of the Corn Belt, at least for maybe 24 to 48 hours. But now we get into the early part of next week, late in the weekend into early next week. And what you're seeing here is the effects of some of those embedded short waves within the jet stream. You know, we lose the big trough, but we're still seeing little clusters of storms developing over the middle part of the country and tracking through portions of the Corn Belt. So the major storm systems, the big newsmakers may be taking a pause, but again, we're not shutting the pattern down by any stretch of the imagination. It's just maybe a different thunderstorm causing or thunderstorm producing jet stream alignment. So we'll look at the precipitable water here, and this is again kind of ties in with the overall problem. You know, we're taking the jet stream, we're getting rid of the big trough, but we're keeping these little patches of strong winds moving across the central part of the country. And as we look, we're still pumping Gulf moisture into the middle part of the country. So as I play this for you, you know, any shortwave trough that moves through the Corn Belt here still has plenty of moisture to work with to develop, again, these clusters of storms that could produce severe weather, and they could produce locally flooding rains here. So with almost the entire Corn Belt dealing with, you know, planting problems or no plant, you know, issues, it's not the news that we want. It's not as if we're building in a major ridge over the central United States. We just flipped from a pattern with big low pressures over the central plains to a pattern with you know, daily clusters of storms tracking across the Corn Belt and needing to watch those on a day-by-day basis. The European model, just the raw model output here, the next 7 days of precipitation, so taking us through June 4th, highlights the pattern here. You know, this is largely a result of the pattern we're dealing with right now, you know, with the low over the central plains, your front, the cold front, and then your warm front extending off to the east. The GFS has a similar look here. But again, we're going to have to kind of watch things as we head into next week and try and pin down where each of these clusters of storms is going to be. And that kind of shows itself here, the week 2 precipitation anomalies. So this would be June 4th through June 11th, still highlighting anomalously high precipitation across a big chunk of the Corn Belt. Maybe the only exception here, talking about parts of the eastern Corn Belt into the Mid-South, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, into Michigan. Everyone else, it does look like, you know, we're going to keep the chance for storms at least every couple days in the forecast. We'll finish up talking about temperatures now. We look at the day 0 through 5 precipitation or temperature anomalies. Taking us into the first couple of days of June, we see the high pressure over the southeast, keeping it warm here across parts of the Ohio Valley into the mid-south. Starting to warm up a little bit over North Dakota, but a bit cooler than average here across the central plains, which is of course not what we wanted after weeks of very heavy rainfall, to have cooler than normal temperatures. As we head into the days 6 through 10, so now we're looking in through June 4th into June 8th, and we get a cooler look across the eastern Corn Belt as we build in, somewhat of a look like this. Again, more of a ridge off to the west, but the trough in the east. But, again, this keeps northwest flow over the area where we have to watch for those shortwave troughs kicking off clusters of storms during the peak heating of the afternoon. High temperatures for the next 5 days. Your Tuesday high temperature forecast, very warm and muggy. Along and south of this boundary here, high temperatures in the mid to upper 80s, if not the 90s, across parts of the mid-south. And that's a humid upper 80s to 90 degrees with dew points in the mid-70s, which is just July or August-like. As we head through the day on Wednesday, we're starting to see that cold front slowly make its way through. I guess we should call it a cool front. The only place that maybe is a little bit chilly is going to be across the central plains here with high temperatures in the 60s. And then this will be Thursday, high temperatures, Friday, and then we'll finish here with Saturday with temperatures beginning to rebound again. It's not a major ridge. If we were talking about building in the summer ridge, we'd be talking about 90s coming up through the central plains. This is just a pattern where we lose the big trough off to the western United States, but we'll be watching for daily chances for storms developing with those shortwave troughs or short waves embedded within the overall flow of the jet stream well into next week. As always, Eric Snodgrass will have an in-depth look at the evolution of the next 1 to 2 weeks in our Thursday morning ag forecast video, and I'll have your next Corn Belt regional forecast for you right here midday on Friday. Have a great day.